You're watching Seven Rivers Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. Each week, an inside look into sports, into wellness, into fitness, introduce you to some celebrities throughout the greater La Crosse area. Hey, today you're going to be inspired as you meet two of the best softball players that ever played fast-pitch softball in the La Crosse area. Mike Geary, Paul Bruha. Welcome to the show, guys.
Nice to meet you, Terry. It's an honor to be here.
Yep. We're going to go back, though. Before we talk about fast-pitch softball, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane, starting with you, Mike, because your career and your interest in sports started when you were very young, long before you went to Aquinas.
That's correct. I played basketball and football at St. James in grade school, and I also started playing softball when I was around 9 or 10 years old at Roosevelt in the Park League. So long before I got to Aquinas, and I spent many hours at the Roosevelt tennis court playing basketball and hitting the ball around the court and playing football behind the school. So yes, it started a long time before that.
It's funny because Mike's a little older than I am. However, I started my career in sort of the same way. Didn't end up as good as him, but playing the outdoor courts of Roosevelt and Franklin. And that was our boys' club back then, because that's exactly what it was. Outdoors, all winter long, by the way, with a shovel in hand. And, am I right, Mike?
What a way to learn. You started out playing with your own age group and on one basket, and the older boys were playing on the other basket, and when someone wouldn't show up, they'd say, "Hey, Gary, come on down here and play with us," or somebody else come down and play with us, and you went home that night feeling pretty good because you got to play with the big boys.
Well, Paul Bruha started playing very young, too. And part of his steps to becoming successful were on boys' club teams, and but maybe even before that, Paul.
Actually, no. I started playing baseball with you, Coach. I played a lot of basketball with my dad. My dad was a basketball coach at Aquinas High School, and so I played a lot of basketball then too. But I remember playing with Coach Erickson. It must have been when I was 8 or 9 years old. He had just started boys club, basically. He was known as one of the toughest coaches around, but he really helped me out a lot as far as playing ball.
Well, Paul Bruha had a tremendous amount of success before he went to Aquinas, and here's a quick little story. People have asked me, geez, you were blessed by coaching a lot of great athletes, weren't you, in baseball and football and basketball? And I often say that two of the best I ever coached on the right-hand side of the plate, no question about it, Rich Kaiser. On the left-hand side of the plate, Paul Bruha, the best left-handed hitter that I've ever coached, and part of 3 Stars at the World Championships, the most valuable player in one of them, and you just had an outstanding youth career, no question about it.
Thank you. The only reason I was batting left-handed, by the way, is because my father wanted me to be a switch hitter, and I never faced any left-handed pitchers, so I was always batting left-handed.
Well, Mike, from Roosevelt Playgrounds at St. James and Franklin to Aquinas High School, and if you go back and look at the old yearbooks from Aquinas, you were one outstanding student athlete, no question about it. And you played with some great teams, you had some great coaches, certainly some defining moments in your life.
Well, it was, and one of the defining moments was having the opportunity to play for Coach John Mashuda. I played 3 years of varsity football and 3 years of varsity basketball, and when you go back in time, he's a legend, graduate of Notre Dame. So all of us boys that went to a Catholic grade school that played football, that moved on to Aquinas and had the opportunity to play, it was a big moment for us. And the older you get, the more important it is to you.
Not only do I remember you as an Aquinas athlete, a few years older than me, but I remember your teammates. I remember the success you had. I remember some of the same moments, but you were blessed with some great teammates too.
Well, I was blessed with some great teammates in my class. I don't want to mention some names, but there were some outstanding players. And I also played on a team when I was a sophomore, along with some of my sophomore peers, Tim Haggerty, Bob Saborski, some of the other ones, and we played on the same team with Robbie Dunham and Bobby Besh and Tom Nelke and Chuck Bigley, and they had a great football team.
Well, all legends.
Those guys were special.
Oh, no question about it. Speaking of special, Paul, watching you as you left the club and you became even more accomplished athlete, watched you on the basketball court playing for your dad, watched you play as an Aquinas Blue Gold baseball player. You had a great deal of success too, didn't you?
Yes, I basically played all 4 years of high school, all varsity all 4 years, and played in a good team in 1976 that included Mike D. and Eddie Service, who are now Division I baseball coaches. We just had a fantastic year that year. I mean, we fell short at state, but we probably should have won. It was just a tough game at the time. But
would that be, as you look back in your high school years, 4 years as a varsity starter, would that be your defining moment, getting to state?
Yes and no. The real defining moment is playing with the team. I always like playing with the team and the competition. Competition is my thing, I guess, so to speak.
Well, you both had really good coaches when you were young, too. Anyone that you can think of that really was certainly made a difference in your life?
I wouldn't say you, Terry. You really did. I apologize. But you were, for my baseball anyway.
Well, I know. Thank you, but I wasn't looking for that necessarily. But you were one of my favorites, no question about it. But at the high school level, too, you had some special coaches.
Well, I did. I had my father. My father was a really good baseball coach and basketball coach, and he taught me a lot of interesting. He taught me to be a good player and a competitive player, and it was tough on him. And obviously, he had to be a little bit tougher on me because he was a basketball coach at Aquinas. But he really made an impact in my life.
And you're a good person as a result of that, and a great family, no question about it. Mike, I remember a lot of things you accomplished, and you talked about John Mashuda, and I knew Coach Mashuda pretty well too. Give me one thing that sticks in your mind that he taught you.
Well, one thing that sticks in my mind is that whether you won the game or lost the game, you looked forward. It was over with. You didn't ponder upon it. He wasn't that type of a man. Another thing that sticks out in my mind, and it always will, is after our football games, we had to take our shoes off, but before we took our equipment off, he always marched us down to the chapel. And we said a prayer, and then he would conclude by saying, I want you to look in the mirror tonight, because you're the only one that knows if you gave it 100%. And that's always kind of daunting. Well, he probably knew because he was that great a coach. He could see everything that happened on the field. But he would put it back on us, say, look in the mirror. You're the only one that knows.
Well, just to kind of paraphrase that a little bit now, I've used it a few times and I've seen it. I've met the enemy, and the enemy is me. That's kind of what he was talking about.
Well, it is. I mean, he prepared us, and then it was up to us to play. And he knew we were young. He knew we were young. I'll tell you one quick story. We had an assistant coach at Aquinas late in probably our senior year, and he coached the defense. And not too long ago, I saw the gentleman at a funeral, and I introduced myself, and we spoke. And he said, you know, Mike, I went into John's office one day, and I said, you know, John, I want to do some different things on defense. And he looked at him and he said, Dick, these are youngsters. Let's keep it simple.
Well,
block, tackle.
Practices, simple. The legend is that they were simple but militaristic and hard. I mean, there wasn't any room for nonsense.
Repetitiveness. Yeah. We would run up and down that field, and he'd stand there and watch us run plays. Very seldom did we have contact. Once in a while we would, but we'd run with what he called plays. We would run up and down the field at the old orphanage, come up to the line of scrimmage, run the play, and he'd watch. And he wanted to see how we were getting off that ball, how those guards were pulling. His guards were his favorite men, you know.
Of course.
If you were a guard.
Of course, and the one thing as I reflect back, and I've said this during the broadcast before we take a break, is I've never seen a team in the history of broadcasting, playing, watching, that got off the ball quicker than John Machuta's Aquinas Blue Ghosts. No question about it.
That's why, because that's what we did every single day. Hours of running those plays. When that ball snapped, he wanted to make sure everybody was moving.
And they were. Speaking of moving, we got to move to a break. So we're going to step aside just for a minute. We'll be right back with more here on Seven Rivers Sports.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
who listens to what your needs are.
We install Carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. Today our guest Mike Geary, Paul Bruha. We're talking about Classic League and area fast pitch softball. Well, and two of the legends, by the way, two of the very best that ever played in the greater lacrosse area. Mike Geary, you started playing fast pitch softball much younger than most.
Well, not necessarily, because see, back in those days, the Park and Rec department had leagues. I started out playing as a midget at Roosevelt. Roosevelt had a team, Luth had a team, Copeland had a team, West Avenue had a team. So if you chose at that time, well, I actually played both, played baseball and fast pitch softball. So I started out around 9 or 10 years old, and thank God the park department offered us the opportunity. Then I advanced in, when I got older, you advanced into what they called an intermediate league. And that concluded your play in the park department. And then from there, I had the opportunity to play in the Lacrosse Classic League.
Well, you were a Classic League player, which is the unusual uniqueness of this, when you were still in high school, though. Because, I mean, your gifts were recognized when you were very young.
Well,
to play against men, you were a boy.
Well, I was 16 years old, pitching in the Classic League for Handy Builders, and certainly took my knocks and grew up fast. But yeah, Gary Betts, who was a good friend of mine, passed away a few years ago, was our manager when we won the ASA state tournament. Came up to me after the game and asked me if I would like to pitch for Handy Builders, and I really didn't know how to take that. I was pretty young, but it worked out.
But you didn't start as a pitcher, though.
Oh yeah, always. Well, I started out.
You played first base too, didn't you?
I started out as a first baseman in the midgets, because my idol was the first baseman for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I told my dad I want to be a first baseman, and I played first base in baseball. But I had a unique thing happen to me. Mr. Russ Kroner was our director at Roosevelt, and the door was open one day, and we were all wanted to be pitchers, you know, and all of us could have been, I suppose, but I threw the ball right through the window, and he looked
was
at
the window open or closed?
Well, the door was through the door. It had mesh in the door, and he looked at me and he said, "Mike, I'm going to make a pitcher out of you." And for years, whenever I'd see him, when he was an elder statesman, I'd say, "Mr. Kroner, if it wasn't for you, I'd probably still be playing first base." So anyway.
So starting that young, now Paul, was it a easy transition being an exceptional baseball player and then finding that your niche in fast pitch softball?
It was not an easy transition. Basically, fast pitch pitchers have this rise ball that you don't see in baseball. Plus, they're throwing from only 46 feet away, which the average pitcher is about 70 miles per hour, which is really Major League Baseball, 90, 95 miles per hour. So you got to be a little bit quicker with your bat. I got the hang of it once I figured out that rise ball, though. I was able to make myself a good player, basically, hitting the ball.
Hey, but you were. Now, listen to this. We're just going to go back in time here now. Two of the best. And why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they both have won the Merle Hale Award. They both won the Claire Wraith Award. Mike in the Wisconsin Softball Hall of Fame. Both accomplished a great deal. And it's about time they get recognized to you, our viewers, on what they've accomplished. But starting with you, Mike, those awards, and I know that's not who you are necessarily, because talking about your success, but players that you played with, Haggerty and so on, but you've accomplished a great deal.
Well, I always look at it this way. Fast pitch is a team sport. And it's made up of three different facets: pitching, defense, and timely hitting. And if the pitcher pitches well and the defense plays well and you get a few timely hits, you're going to win a lot of ball games. If any of those three break down, you're probably going to be in trouble. But all the Claire Wraith Trophy and the Merle Hale Trophy, to me, mean the most. Claire Wraith was. He was killed in World War II, and he was a catcher, I think, for the Bodega team. I think he caught Swish Browning. I think he did. But anyway, he didn't make it back from World War II, and those men who played with him honored him. And back in the 60s and the 50s and 60s and even the 70s, it was a big deal. And it wasn't just based on your ability to play ball. They based it on other things. And then Merle, naturally, he was a teammate of mine, a pitcher and a manager, and he passed away one night at Powell. So that means a lot to me.
Yeah, well, they're both huge awards. And in case you didn't know this, you will in a second. I talked about Paul being the best hitter I've ever coached on the left side of the plate. Mike Geary, the best pitcher that I've ever seen in the greater La Crosse area, one of the best in the nation, perhaps the world, and that's how good he was. And Paul, you won the two awards too, and when I look at the list of awards, it's some special people.
It definitely is. It was a very humbling deal to get the award when I got it at the time, because I was managing a team. I was managing a team. I was trying to run the league, Lacrosse Classic League, and playing, obviously. And the playing was always the fun part. But I didn't mind managing. I didn't mind coaching. It was kind of a cool deal.
Well, and Mike retired with grandchildren and not involved in playing anymore competitively. Probably still could, because he's in such good shape. But but Paul still playing as he approaches his late 50s, still playing competitive throughout the area, and in Classic League and playing on elite teams. And you still have the gift and you still have the interest.
Definitely. 39 years I've been playing. Ever since 1978, I kept playing the game, and I just love the team aspect of it, the camaraderie, and playing ball. And now I'm playing, besides with the young guys, I'm also playing with Masters tournament people, which are, well, started at 40 and over, and went to 45 and older. Now it's at actually 60 and over, even though I'm 58, because they could play a couple younger guys in it. So,
when I think of players besides you two, I think of personalities, unique personalities. I think of players from the past. I think of Bob Took and Sandy Gordon. I think of Dave Coburn, Randy, and Blank and Nook. I think of Ronnie Barnes, Bagneski. I think of just legendary characters that maybe a lot of our viewers don't even remember. And there were some special players, weren't there, Mike?
Oh, there's no question.
And managers.
Well, they were players, and then they became managers because they loved the game, and they loved the competitiveness of the game. And thank God, we're thankful that they did, because they tutored us and got us going. Sandy was a great sponsor, probably one of the best sponsors this city will ever see. He offered us the opportunity to Clearwater, Florida, to play the Bombers, and flew us out there, and he sponsored 2 ISC World Tournament teams, and spent a lot of money doing that. But overall, it's at the end of the day, and Paul, I take my hat off to you at your age and the level you play at. At the end of the day, it's about who you played with, and the Colburns and the
One of the legends, too, that was a good friend of mine, passed away a few years ago, Ronnie Barnes. He continued to use his gift as a teacher by helping area young people, too.
Well, he did, and he also coached the ladies team at UWL. Ronnie was always a steady hand. You know, his personality never changed. He never was too high. He was never too low, and he was a great manager. Bob, on the other hand, was a little more fiery, and together they worked well together. But no, Ron Barnes. I was talking to Paul earlier. Called me the day, and he said, "Mike, this is the first time there won't be any fast pitch softball since post World War II," which was a sad day.
Yes.
Both of you stayed in great shape, and I know Paul competing in Tri-Quest and winning the last two first flights in a County Am golf tournament. You've made a commitment to stay fit, and it shows, no question about it.
Thank you.
And you're going to continue to play. You're going to continue.
I'm going to continue playing until some young kid can beat me out at second base.
and your family too. Just quickly as we end the show, your family. I know I watched you work with your daughters too, and tell us about your family.
Yes, I worked with my younger daughter Casey for a number of years. I helped try to teach her pitching, even though I wasn't the greatest pitcher in the world myself. And she's now at Ladysmith teaching. So she's a teacher at Ladysmith, and just got that job just recently. And Gracie, my older daughter, I worked with her a little bit in fast pitch softball also, and now she's in Sedula, Missouri. She's an RN, registered nurse.
Okay,
so
good. And Mike, I know your family real well too, and they've been a key part of. You never put softball or work ahead of your family, and that's why you're admired by so many. And you update on your family.
Well, my wife is, to be a softball wife is, it's really a challenge, and she always went along, especially when you have children, then it gets a little worse. But I have my wife Gretchen, wonderful lady. I have a daughter Anna, and a son Patrick. And both of them went to Logan. My daughter lives in Lakeville. I have 3 grandchildren. I have a granddaughter, Molly, just turned 13. I have a grandson, Andrew Patrick. He's 10. And I have another grandson, Maxwell John, who's 7. And the boys are involved in hockey and baseball, and my granddaughter's involved in dance.
And I'm sure you're involved.
My son lives in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and you're involved in their lives.
And I watch them.
But you talk about a softball wife. And you were blessed with that. So are you, Paul.
Yes, Mary Jo was. She let me play all these tournaments, and she still does, which is the coolest thing in the world. She was there for almost every game for the first 20 years. I understand now why she's not there all the time. But
well, it's been fun catching up with 2 softball legends, and I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I enjoyed seeing these guys and catching up with them here on Seven Rivers Sports. So Mike Geary and Paul Bruha, thanks for being our guests this week.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
We'll be back with some clips from our first football games of the 2017 season right after this.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
Who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning. Your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. Well, we kicked off the high school football season here on KQEG on Friday night with 2 non-conference games. First, Nick Ragnar and I were at UWL, Roger Herring Field. The Central Red Raiders hosting Eau Claire North from the Big Rivers. Central wasted no time showing off their talented spread offense, taking a 24-0 first quarter lead, 14 more points in the second quarter, and a comfortable 38-0 halftime lead. Eau Claire North scored its only TD in the third quarter as split end Jeff Pippinger hauled in a pass from quarterback Tyler Greenland and raced 83 yards down the sideline. Central would only score once in the second half, a David Hayden 8-yard TD pass from quarterback Johnny Davis. Central dominated statistically, 585 total yards. Sophomore quarterback Johnny Davis threw for 403 yards and 3 TDs. Jordan Davis caught 3 passes for 85 yards before suffering a first quarter injury. Jamar Davis caught 7 passes for 104 yards and carried 3 times for 63 yards. Greg Kohler and two-way starters Eddie Miller and Zach Luth also had an outstanding game. Final score, Central 45, Eau Claire North 7. Central is at Eau Claire Memorial on Thursday. Our other crew is at Sparta on Friday night for a non-conference game against Black River Falls. Sparta got its offense going in the first quarter, scoring on their first 2 possessions, taking a 14-0 lead after 1. The teams traded TDs in the second quarter, with the Spartans ahead 21-7 at intermission. The teams went scoreless in the third quarter. Then in the fourth, Sparta would score on a Cole Wisniewski 12-yard run. The Tigers would answer with a Ryan Engelbretson 10-yard run. Wisniewski led Sparta with 138 yards rushing. Greg Jacobs had 68 yards and 1 TD, while teammate Bryce Edwards totaled 67 yards and a TD. Final score, Sparta 28, Black River Falls 13. Well, thanks for joining us this week here on 7 Rivers Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson, hoping that you will have a healthy and an active week ahead.